Welcome to Explore. I'm Mary Ruth Snyder, the Executive Director of the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce and the host of today's show. Our very special guest is Shannon Simpson of Masterpiece Magic. I was going to say mystical magic, but it's Masterpiece Magic, and I'm so excited to learn all about this because even the name is very intriguing. What on earth is Masterpiece Magic? But we'll get to that. Shannon, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure.
Shannon, before we get to what Masterpiece Magic is, can you maybe share with us, like, where were you born and raised? And let's talk a little bit about the journey and the path you took to get to this seat today.
So I was born and raised in a small farm town on the mainland called Port Kells. And it was really actually a special place to be raised. Growing up there, I was able to go on my bike wherever I wanted. It was a lovely community, and there was so many people around that I could call my mom, which was so fantastic. And so I grew up there, and I had the opportunity then to go to University of British Columbia, and I studied there doing my Bachelor of Human Kinetics. And when I was in the middle of my program, actually, I did a preceptorship, and it was in therapeutic recreation program. I was working with seniors in extended care, and it was this moment I had where I was like, wow, this is so fun. I love this, and could this actually be a job that I could do? And so I inquired about it with the lady at the hospital. I said, is this like a real thing? And she said, yeah, it's called Therapeutic Recreation Program. I said, oh, wow. So I ended up going, looking into that program, and next thing you know, I got in, and I was like, oh, goodness, now what do I do? So I ended up finished my human kinetics and my therapeutic recreation program all at the same time.
Okay. And
ended up at Peace Arch Hospital, where I worked with seniors in extended care for 13 years. And I loved that job. One of my favorite things is organizing, planning events, and really bringing joy to people's lives. And I remember I would come up the elevator in the morning, and the elevator doors would open, and they'd go, Shannon's here! And it really was that. I mean, we just did so many amazing fun things together. We would go fishing, we would go crabbing, and nice. I remember just all the fun events and programs that we used to do. And then my journey shifted. I had some work that I needed to do that I had literally swept under the mat. And when I say work, I mean some heart work that I needed to work through. And I guess the journey that took me there was my journey with cancer.
Okay.
And so I found myself at the age of 34 with 1-year-old twins, a husband with 2 broken hands, and I was dealing with cancer. Mm-hmm. And so I remember going on my first cancer retreat and thinking, I realized that my cancer was caused by the trauma of my childhood. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I realized that I was raised in a home where I wasn't allowed to express. I wasn't allowed to speak my truth. I wasn't allowed to there wasn't a lot of emotions. We didn't cry. We didn't get angry. It was, you lift up the mat and sweep everything under. And so here I was at the age of 34, learning that I had a lot of work to do. And so in the process of moving through my cancer and my cancer treatment, my son was also then diagnosed with autism. And so...
This is one of your twins?
One of my twins.
Are they both boys or
boy-girl twins?
Boy-girls, okay.
And so I realized that this journey was really about getting back to health and wellness, and what that meant for me and my family. And it wasn't just about the food that I put in my mouth, which became very important to me. When the kids were 3, I ended up going back to school to do nutritional education at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, because it was my determination that not only was I going to make sure that I didn't get sick again, that I was going to help to heal my son and keep my family healthy. You know, we fast forward to school now, and you know, my son didn't fit in, and this was my story when I went to school as well. And so I found myself trying to find ways for people to understand him like I did, and it just wasn't working. And I think this one day we just decided, or I decided, that we just needed to restart. And so after I graduated from the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, my husband and I sold our company. We sold our house, and we moved to Vancouver Island within 3 short months. It just felt like where we just needed to restart. And so this journey has taken me again full circle, trying to figure out like how to navigate self-care and self-love, and what that means, and what that means not just for me but for my kids. And because what I've learned is that kids do as they see. And when mama's not taking care of herself and not doing the best for herself, then that can show up in them. And so I didn't want that for them. I wanted them to see me thrive. I wanted them to see me taking good care of myself, so they too could do that. And so I decided I was going to start this thing called Toolbox Tuesdays. And it was me going on Facebook Live and pushing the button, and knowing as a perfectionist that I could very well screw up. And that would be okay, because I am human, and that's what we do. We make mistakes and we learn from them, but I can't have courage if I'm not courageous enough to step up and make those mistakes.
Okay, so that is an incredible journey. Now, is there a person or an incident from your childhood that gave you the strength and the determination and the persistence that you ultimately found deep within to move forward, especially after the cancer diagnosis?
One of the experiences that I had when I was in grade 2, it was the first day of grade 2, and my teacher told me in front of my entire class that actually I didn't pass, that I failed. And she asked me to pack up my belongings and moved me across the classroom to the grade 1 class in front of all my friends. And that was a pivotal moment for me. I don't think I've ever forgot that moment, because I feel like it was shining the light on what I wasn't good at instead of shining the light on what I am good at. And I had this amazing support teacher. Her name was Mrs. Hall. Mrs. Hall, if you see me now, so you'd be so proud. And I remember I was working at Earl's one day, fast forward, in my mid-20s, and I remember running into Mrs. Hall and telling her that I was in the middle of going to university at UBC, and I was like so incredibly proud to like share with her that I was doing these things and moved through this really challenging time. Because, you know, I remember grade 1, I hated sitting still. I just wanted to be out in the world and look at butterflies and smell the flowers and look at the birds. I wasn't meant to sit in a chair and be told to sit still and do math that I hated. That wasn't me. And so, yeah, Mrs. Hall was this amazing woman that just believed in me and gave me courage to move through the things that I didn't want to move through, but gave me encouragement that I could do it anyways. You know, I think the final part of my journey was I had an opportunity to take a program called Masterpiece Tribes that was an online program. And this program was a lot of money. And I really struggled believing that I was worth the cost of that program. And I will say that that program transformed my life. I met Amor, who is one of my partners, and Alexander, who facilitated the program. And now we've created this Masterpiece Magic program, and this is the magic. This is the magic, because I mean, I think, like, you know, all our core subjects, you know, social studies, science, math, they're all important. But if we don't know who we are, and we don't know what makes us come alive, and we don't feel good about ourselves in this world, then how do we do those other subjects?
Right. We left off where you were talking about Toolbox Tuesdays. So let's talk about the Toolbox Tuesdays, because I feel that led to the next step. So what exactly was a Toolbox Tuesday?
So if we backtrack, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I started communicating with all the people that wanted to, you know, help out, or because I had 2 young twins and there was a food chain going on, and so I started just typing messages and emails, and then I realized, my girlfriend says, why don't you start creating a blog? And so I created this blog, and then I ended up calling it Shannon's Toolbox.
Okay.
And like I said, back to the day when I got out of the blue chair, I was like, I need to speak my truth. I need to say these things that are inside of me out loud. And so I just went on my Facebook page and I said, what if I was to come out and do a Facebook Live? Would anybody listen? And some of my friends were, yeah, I listen. I said, okay. So, I mean, I went back not long ago and watched my first Toolbox Tuesday, and I was like, wow, I've come a long way. But I mean, that was the birth of it. Like,
Right.
It just was, I just knew in my heart that I just needed to speak. I needed to say what was in my heart out loud. And before, I used to write it all out and type it all out, and now I just go into my office in the morning of, and I close my eyes and I just sit quietly, and often what needs to be said just comes.
Right.
And then at 10 o'clock I push.
Are you still doing?
I still do
You're
them.
Still doing Toolbox Tuesdays.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's 44 episodes later.
Wow.
And a year later. In between that, my family and I crossed Canada in a rooftop tent for 2 months.
What is that? What's a rooftop tent?
So it's a tent that goes on the roof of your vehicle.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it literally folds up into this nice, tidy little box on the top of your car.
And you sleep on the top of
And
your car.
yeah, and then it pops open, and it has a little ladder, and then you sleep on the top of your car.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so we did
That
that.
keeps you away from all the wildlife
Yeah,
and the snakes. Ooh, and spiders. Ooh.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
yeah,
That
yeah.
is, okay.
Yeah, and so we homeschool our kids.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of homeschool. So we left last year on May the 4th,
Yep.
and we traveled all across Canada using our tent.
Awesome. And how old are your children now?
They're 15 now.
They're
They just-
15.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so when we moved here, they had just turned 8.
Okay.
And they're 15 now. And I've been homeschooling my kids for 4 years now.
Okay. And how is your son doing?
Oh, my son is doing fantastic. And you know, that is the beauty of, you know, having him at home and focusing on the things that he loves and that he's good at. So he actually got on a train last month. He has a photographic memory of maps, and he got on a train and traveled across Canada by himself.
Wow.
And not only did he do that, he paid for the ticket himself from working
Amazing.
at Superstore.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love stories like that. That adventurous spirit, that, because we in our current society, other than the history books, like that would talk about, you know, kids as young as 13 and 14 literally heading out into the world on their own, jumping on ships in Ireland and landing in North America on the shores with nothing but 20 cents in their pocket. So to hear that that is still happening for the youth that are brave enough to do that, that is extraordinary.
Right? I mean, I'm so incredibly proud of him. You know, this is a young boy that struggles to be social and connect with people. But yet, if we focus on the things that he's good at, you know, he had the courage to get on this train all by himself.
Amazing.
And he did get to meet his grandparents on the other end. They're all in Quebec. So
nice.
But again, so incredibly proud of him. And, you know, my daughter is the same. You know, COVID was a difficult time for many of our teens. You know, she didn't really know what end was up and where she could go, and she wasn't allowed to see her friends.
Well, because they would have been 12, 13,
Yeah,
right in the thick of it. That's
yeah.
a terrible age to be stuck in the house at that point.
Yeah, and so she's been struggling with anxiety. And she too is coming out on the other end. She's back out in the community. She's rock climbing. She's feeling good about herself. She's gone from failing math to getting 97%.
Awesome.
And it's just so good. And it's like, I feel like if you told me like I was going to be homeschooling my children, I would have told you were crazy. I would have told you were never homeschooling my children. But you know, it's been beautiful to hold space for them and allow them to do the things that they love, do the things that bring them joy. Like she gets to go out on Tuesday mornings and do outdoor photography with this fellow who used to be a school counselor. He's in his late 70s, a beautiful man. And he just said, I've watched Abigail go from this very anxious, quiet, timid young lady to this beautiful, you know, open, not anxious at all, and curious woman.
So through the opportunity to explore what her passions are, and by discovering one of them, the photography, and being given the freedom to pursue that, it has helped her blossom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, I think back to me again in school, like I feel like it was, the light was always shone on what I couldn't do. What I wasn't good at reading. I had ADHD, I had dyslexia. I always shone on what I wasn't good at.
And those things were only being diagnosed literally in the last 10 to 15 years. So back when you were in school, they probably didn't even have names for what you were experiencing.
Right. And yet, what if they had shone the light on what I was good at?
100%.
What if they had shone the light on the things that I was passionate about? And so I think, you know, again, having the opportunity to be at home, which not all moms do, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But watching my kids step into who they are. But I'd also like to back up and say, I've also had the courage to step into who I am.
Right.
And so one of the things that I've been moving through, and it's been an incredibly hard thing to swallow, was a bit of resentment. This idea that I was, you know, I have to stay at home and my husband gets to go away and I have to do all this and da 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 da. And I was like, actually, what if I could let that go? And what if I could use that as an opportunity? And what if I could allow my kids to be more independent And what if I didn't have to always do everything for them? What if it could be the school of life? What if they could actually step up to the plate and help me with dishes more? What if they could help with doing more of cutting the lawn? What if they could help me prepare the dinner more? And I could see slowly as I asked them to step into them.
Right.
It was amazing that it all of a sudden our home felt like this, we were a team. We were working together. And so my son cooks dinner once a week, and they do participate around the house. And I don't feel like I am asking them to do things all the time. They show up to the plate. And I think sometimes kids nowadays aren't always asked to do these things, these hard things.
Right.
And I think these are important skills.
They are. And so your personal experience with your family and your children, is that what led you to Masterpiece Magic? I keep wanting to say mystical magic because I love the word mystical, but Masterpiece Magic, is that, how did that transition to this? Or did that lead to this?
So basically, the Masterpiece Magic program, again, was basically created out of the original course that I had taken, which was called Masterpiece Tribes.
Okay.
And I had my girlfriend Amore, she was like, I want to work with kids. And I love working with kids. It's been what I've known my whole life that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about that. Even when I was 12 years old, I used to babysit up to 7 kids at a time, being in a small little rural farm area.
Right.
You know, they would find the one babysitter on the street, and the parents were all friends, and they would all leave the kids with me, and away they would go. But it's something that I've always loved to do. I've always loved to teach. And so one of the things I did was I was part of the salad bar program here, which was at Hughband, and I grew it to the largest salad bar program across Canada.
Okay.
Which was an amazing opportunity. And we would go into the classrooms and we'd teach the kids about nutrition and teach the kids about eating local, organically sourced food. And I loved it. And then I created a program which was called a sugar program. So talking about sugar and how it affects your body and how it causes inflammation. I talked about what's on your plate and the importance of colors and the rainbow of colors on your plate. And I talked about nutrition and the environment and how the choices around food affects our environment, and if we're sourcing locally, how that can help our farmers and how it's all tied in.
Yes.
And so then COVID happened.
Right.
And then all my opportunities to teach in the local schools was shut down.
Right.
And so then basically how it happened was that now with this whole movement of online and people learning about Zoom, all of a sudden there's so much more potential for teaching and reaching more kids. And so this program literally has been me and Amore and Alexander stepping into creating this beautiful program for teens about stepping into what makes them come alive. So
what's the age group that you're working with?
So it's between the ages of 13, 17.
Okay.
Basically your high school kids.
Yep.
We really want to focus on what it is that lights you up. What it is that, again, makes a fire in your belly.
Yeah.
Is how I like to describe it. I spoke about it before, like math and science and socials and all these things are so important. But if we don't know about expressing emotions, if we don't know that emotions are energy, emotions that they're meant to move through us, and if we don't express our emotions, how that can make us sick. I know Gabor Mate often talks about it.
I was just thinking about him.
Yeah, like I've followed him. I watched his Wisdom of Trauma documentary, and that was a real pivotal moment for me as well, thinking, wow, holy, like my cancer definitely was related to my childhood trauma.
Okay.
And why aren't we teaching our teens and our kids that it's so imperative that we speak about what's on our mind, we speak our truth, and this back to my Toolbox Tuesdays,
Right.
speaking my truth. It's not about being seen and not heard, it's about speaking our truth. And of course we want to say we speak our truth with respect, and
Yes.
we'll be open to hear what the other side has to say. But again, that's what I love about this program. It's like, we talk about like what are our I am statements, and we talk about emotions. We learn about reclamation art, and one of the big things that we do at the end is our vision boards. And I did bring my vision board here today, and this is the thing, like these are the things that you want to bring into your life, you want to call into your life. And often things come into our life first by thinking it. Like I was reading just the other day, the fellow that developed that light bulb, Edison.
Yes.
Like it didn't just happen. He actually visualized it first.
Right.
It came into his mind, and then he many tries to make that unfold. And when he failed, he didn't look at that as a failure of himself. It was like more like, okay, that didn't work. So now what substance do I try next time, right?
Right.
And so this is it. If we can visualize what we want to call into our lives, which again, back to the vision boards,
Right.
and we have that around somewhere where we can see it all the time,
Right.
we can call those things into our lives.
So how do the teenagers get connected with what you're doing? Are you in touch with the school districts and offering this up to the high school student? Like, where does the connection piece come in for the students that want to do this or should do this? How are you making that happen?
Okay. So at this point, it's just been through me and my Facebook and my social media and connections that I've had. I have connected with the Foundry. I have connected with the John Howard Society as well. And I have connected with the school district. This program is here in Canada for teens with a flexible schedule because we are in so many time zones.
Yes.
This is a global online program. The last time we ran this program, we had kids from Botswana, Switzerland, the UK, Mexico, and Canada. So we run it here at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
Okay.
So again, it is for kids with a flexible schedule. What I love about this program the most is that it's sponsored. The whole program to this day has been sponsored by people that believe in me. And that's one of the things that I really want to call in today as well, is that not all families have the finances to pay for these programs outside of the school system.
Right.
But to me, this is the program and this is the magic that I think all teens and all kids, if this is the foundation that they can go forward in this world, then I really do believe that this program is changing the world and will change the world.
Right. Okay. Amazing. Shannon Simpson, thank you so very much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your very, very special journey with us and for giving us hope. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Explorer. Check out Masterpiece Magic on Shannon's Facebook page. I'm sure Dan will put up the graphic for you. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again.